بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. موقع برامج دعاء يقدم لكم
To all the people, open up your door, peace, love and joy.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم والحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله. The stories of the prophets. Allah, God says in the Quran, we reveal to you the most beautiful of stories in this Quran. And in another verse, we relate to you their story in truth. And in another verse, God says, so relate the stories so they may reflect. Welcome to the series on the stories of the prophets. This work is a compilation of the stories of the prophets and messengers of God as revealed in the Quran. The Quran, together with the trusted commentaries, explanations, and books of history written by great scholars of Islam like Ibn Kathir and Ibn Jarir, and from the main sources of history, also a comparison with the Old Testament and New Testaments. Many references have been used, but mainly also the sayings of the Prophet Muhammad, may peace of Allah be upon him. These stories I have compiled for you and made them into this series. I have found that the story as narrated in the Old Testament, in the New Testament, and even in the Quran needs to be rearranged so that people will follow the series. The Quran did not emphasize the order of the story because the reflection and the meaning and the lessons were more important to the reader of the Quran. But this is a trial from my side to arrange the whole story and also at the same time reflect on the lessons that we learn from them. Allah, God, glory to Him, has chosen to use stories as an important and unique approach. It's a style of delivering the message to mankind through His Prophet, beloved Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him. Allah, God the Almighty, has revealed to us many of these stories in the stories of many prophets. Some of the stories are short and some of them take almost an entire long chapter like the surah of Yusuf. Some stories are covered in short groups of verses while some are related in long groups of verses. Some stories like the story of the Prophet Lot, and the Prophet Yunus are repeated in different parts of the Quran, each part explaining a different detail, although the essence of the story remains the same. I have tried to compile it for you and make it in order, compromising the whole story as revealed in the Quran and the Old Testament and the New Testament. The story of Prophet Moses, peace be upon him, for example, is mentioned in more than 70 places in the Quran, from a single verse to groups of more than 30 verses. These different styles in the way the stories of the prophets are revealed in the Quran are by themselves unique and reflect the richness of the Quran and the purpose of the Quran. The Quran is not a history book, it's not a story book. It's a book to guide humanity to God and to guide humanity on how to live correctly according to the laws of God. And thus, because of that emphasis, the stories were not related and revealed in order, except the story of Joseph. The whole story was revealed in order, in one chapter, to show that God can do that. But He intentionally have divided the other stories all over the Quran. The prophets, these are men chosen and sent by God to guide humanity to Him. He sent prophets to every community, sometimes more than one prophet at the same time, to the same community. He says in the Quran, verily, we have sent you in truth as a bearer of good news and as a warner. And there never were people without a warner, a messenger, having lived among them. So every community of humans had a messenger or a prophet sent to them. In another verse of the Quran, God says, "For we assuredly sent among every people a messenger with the command, serve Allah, serve God, and forbid evil." The first prophet sent to earth was Adam, while the last one was Muhammad, peace be upon them all. From various sayings of the prophet, we can conclude that there were more than 124,000 prophets throughout time sent to humanity. 124,000 of them, a huge number, all for the purpose of guiding humanity. Allah, God, does not want to harm us or punish us. He wants us to live in peace in this life and in the hereafter. And that's why He sent us these messengers and prophets. It is the humans who refuse to follow that will be punished. Also, in the sayings of the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, among these 124,000 prophets, there were 300 recognized as messengers of God. The difference between a messenger and a prophet is simple. A prophet is someone who an angel was sent by God to tell his people what to do. He was given miracles to show that he's telling the truth, and he would guide them to Allah and guide them to the truth. A messenger is a prophet, plus a messenger will have a message, and that's why he's called a messenger. A message. Usually the message have laws with it. So besides being given the revelation and guidance from God as a prophet, he is given a message. Do this, don't do that. You are allowed to do this, you're forbidden from doing that. It's a law. And sometimes that law is given in the form of a book. And many of the messengers had books. So this is the main difference. Messengers have a message, a law, and sometimes a book. Prophets usually follow the message of the messengers before them. They don't have a new law. They don't have a message. They came to emphasize the message of the previous messengers. Among these messengers, as the Prophet, peace be upon him, told us, there were 300 of them. Only 25 of these messengers were mentioned by name in the Quran. There are more messengers whose stories are mentioned in the sayings of the Prophet. But the Quran tells us that many messengers have been sent and their names were not given to us. The messengers mentioned in Surah Yasin, Surah number 36 in the Quran, are given, their story is given, but their names were not given. There are prophets and messengers from God whom Allah has chosen not to mention their names or stories related to the Quran. Their names were not mentioned and their stories were not mentioned. Allah have chosen the best of the stories and the best of lessons to be revealed to us. God says, we sent messengers before you. Of them, there are some whose story we have revealed to you, and some whose story we have not related to you. This is in Surah Ghafir, number 40 in the Quran. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, glory to him, sent us these prophets one after another, starting from the first man to walk on the face of the earth, Adam, right up to the last prophet and messenger, Muhammad, peace be upon him. Whenever any prophet dies, another was sent to replace him. And this continued generation after generation. Sometimes, as I said, prophets were sent for a specific period. Some prophets were sent to a specific tribe or race or a nation. Sometimes 2 or 3 prophets were sent amongst the same nation, like Moses and Aaron, Harun, were sent at the same time. Later on, John, Yahya, and Zechariah were sent at the same time. And at the same time, Jesus, they were all sent, 3 of them sent to the children of Israel at the same time. On some of the occasions, prophets lived around the same time, but were sent to different nations, like Prophet Moses and Prophet Shu'aib. They were sent in the same time, but to different nations. Sometimes the succession of prophethood ended with the last prophet, Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So why is all of this emphasis on the stories of the prophets? Why does the Quran spend so many verses, and I would estimate about quarter of the Quran